You've spent nights wondering if you made the right decision, if walking away was a sign of strength or a fatal mistake. If maybe, just maybe, the silence between you two was supposed to be temporary. Then like a ghost summoned by longing, he returns. Maybe it's a message at midnight. Maybe it's a hey, just thinking about you. Maybe it's an innocent reaction to your story. Hearts and fire emojis dropped like breadcrumbs meant to pull you back. You stare at the screen. Your heart skips. The breath catches in your throat. Because the truth is, some part of you never stopped hoping he would return. But here's the part they never tell you. He's not back for love. He's back to test you. And that test, it's not about him. It's about whether you finally learn to love yourself more than you love the fantasy of him. Let's talk about what's really happening here. Because this moment, this is sacred. This is dangerous. This is the edge of who you used to be and who you're becoming. He's not knocking on your door with a bouquet of accountability. He's not holding a handwritten letter of apology soaked in months of reflection. He's not here to right the wrongs. He's here because he felt the shift. He felt the moment your energy turned inward. He felt the silence not as a void, but as a boundary. He felt the reclamation of your power, and it disturbed him. Let's strip away the illusions. When someone truly loves you, they don't gamble with your soul. They don't disappear only to reappear when your smile starts to shine again. They don't come back only when they notice you've begun to move on. When someone loves you, they evolve with you. They grow beside you. They don't sabotage your peace just to remind you of the chaos you once called passion. This is the moment of reckoning. This is where old patterns come back, wearing new clothes. This is where tests arrive dressed like second chances. This is where ghosts whisper sweet nothings to resurrect the old version of you. The one who waited, tolerated, forgave too quickly, blamed herself too often. But that version of you, she doesn't live here anymore, or at least she shouldn't. Because this isn't about him. This is about whether you still betray yourself in the name of hope. Let's pause here and look deeper. There's a psychological pattern called the intermittent reinforcement cycle. It's the same cycle used in gambling. The uncertainty, the unpredictability, the not knowing if love will be returned or ignored. It's addictive. When someone withdraws their affection and then comes back unexpectedly, it lights up the same neural pathways as a jackpot machine. That's not love. That's manipulation masquerading as romance. It's a toxic game that keeps you emotionally dependent and spiritually malnourished. When he returns after disappearing, you must ask yourself, is this love, or is this just withdrawal relief? Too often, we confuse intensity with intimacy. But real intimacy, it requires presence, not absence. It requires consistency, not confusion. It requires emotional responsibility, not emotional sabotage. So when he returns with those eyes that once made your heart race, with that voice that once lulled you into surrender, remember, this isn't the beginning of something new. This is the test to see if you've closed the loop. And history will always repeat itself, unless you learn the lesson. The lesson is this: you cannot keep handing out backstage passes to people who ghosted you during the main act. You see, men like this aren't drawn to your love. They're drawn to your light, but not because they want to bask in it, because they want to dim it just enough to feel powerful again. He sees the way you're rising. He sees the way you're glowing differently, and it threatens the story he told himself about you, that you'd always be waiting, that your door would always be cracked open, that your heart would always be up for negotiation. But you, my love, are not a second option. You are not a safe bet for when the world turns cold. You are not his emotional vacation from accountability. He's not back for love. He's back because you passed him on your way up, and he's wondering if you still remember the path that led you down. Think about the way he left. Think about the silent treatment that lasted for weeks, the gaslighting that made you question your own worth, the apologies that were always laced with excuses. And now he returns with charm and nostalgia, hoping you'll mistake his convenience for commitment. Let's take a walk back through history. Cleopatra, the queen whose beauty and power became legend, understood the game of return. Men came back for her not out of love, but for control, for legacy, for ego. She knew the difference. She knew that not every return was meant to be embraced. Sometimes it was meant to be confronted. Sometimes it was meant to be rejected with grace and fire. So ask yourself, are you being chosen, or are you being tested? He might say all the right things. He might promise change. He might cry. He might share his own pain, and how much he's missed you. But if he hasn't done the inner work, if he hasn't confronted the parts of himself that wounded you, then all he's offering you is a recycled cycle of sorrow. Don't confuse missing you with deserving you. He may miss the way you loved him, without condition, the way you believed in him, when even he couldn't. But missing someone is easy. Healing the behavior that made you lose them, that's the hard part. And if he's not willing to do that work, then what he's really asking is for you to settle back into dysfunction. You are not here to be someone's lesson on how to love. You are not here to teach a grown man what accountability looks like. You are not here to rescue someone from their own immaturity. You are here to become the woman who finally stops choosing pain that feels familiar over peace that feels foreign. Let that sink in. So many of us, whether through childhood conditioning or early relationships, learned that love feels like waiting, like chasing, like proving our worth. And when someone returns after abandoning us, it feels like victory, but it's not. It's a trap. The real victory is in not answering the door. There is a story of a woman named Amara. She was in love once, deeply. He was magnetic, charming, emotionally intense, but he was also inconsistent, reactive, and unreliable. He would vanish during hard times, only to return when things were easy. Amara always took him back, until one day she didn't. The pain was unbearable at first, but over time she built a life that no longer revolved around waiting. Years later, he returned again. Same charm, same eyes, but Amara didn't even flinch. She had become someone new. Someone who didn't need closure from the person who broke her. And that's the thing, your healing doesn't require his redemption. You are not a love story waiting to be rewritten. You are a revolution becoming whole. You will be tested. Oh yes, love will test you. Not in the way Hollywood tells you, in dramatic reunions and passionate rain-soaked kisses, but in quiet moments, in texts that feel like time machines, in voice notes that carry old frequencies, in the temptation to answer just to prove that you've healed. But healing is not proven by how quickly you forgive. It's shown by how fiercely you protect your peace. There is a sacred power in restraint, in silence, in no longer responding to what once wrecked you. So when he comes back, and he will, don't look at him with the eyes of the woman you were. Look at him with the clarity of the woman you've become. Ask yourself, would the healed version of me be entertained by this version of him? You've done the work. You've cried on the bathroom floor. You've questioned your worth. You've rebuilt your confidence from the ruins of rejection. Don't trade that for a familiar kiss. He's not back for love. He's back to see if the doors are still open. It's your job now to show him they're not. Because love doesn't leave and then come back to haunt you. Love stays. Love grows. Love shows up. Everything else is just a test. What happens when you pass the test? When you hear the knock and don't answer. When you read the message and don't reply. When your heart still remembers but your soul says no. That's not just strength. That's rebirth. That's transcendence. That's the moment you finally stop begging old flames to keep you warm. That's the moment you stop mistaking nostalgia for compatibility. Because not every person from your past was meant to stay in your future. Some were only meant to be mirrors showing you the places you still needed to heal, the wounds still bleeding beneath your strength, the love you still withheld from yourself. And once you've seen yourself clearly in that mirror, your job is not to keep staring. Your job is to walk away and become more. When he returns, hoping you've forgotten the silence, hoping you're still addicted to the fantasy, remember this, the version of you who accepted breadcrumbs is no longer hungry, because she learned to feed herself. She learned to grow gardens instead of chasing deserts. She learned that no text at 2 a.m., no temporary rush of adrenaline, no half-hearted apology will ever be enough to sit at the table she built with her own self-respect. Let's go deeper. You are not a placeholder. You are not an emotional support system for someone who lacks the courage to stand alone. You are not his training ground for future relationships. You are not his rehab, his rescue, or his redemption. You are your own revolution. And sometimes revolutions don't scream. They don't rage. They don't make grand announcements. Sometimes revolutions whisper no more and walk away. This is where your story shifts. Because the test isn't just about him. It's about every decision you make after that. It's about who you let in next. It's about whether you fill that space with purpose or poison. It's about whether you keep telling yourself that you're just being open, or if you're honest enough to admit you're still craving validation from someone who once treated you like an option. This is the lesson no one teaches us as young women. That love isn't proven through endurance. That patience isn't about tolerating mistreatment. That loyalty, without boundaries, becomes self-betrayal. That you can deeply care for someone and still choose not to let them back in. You see, self-respect doesn't scream. It doesn't argue. It doesn't send essays trying to explain your worth. Self-respect is quiet. It says, I don't need to prove myself to you. I already know who I am. There is something sacred in walking away with no bitterness in your heart. To love someone and still say goodbye, not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring more about yourself. So let's ask the deeper question. Why do they come back? Because they felt your detachment. Because the energy that once chased them has now been reclaimed. Because you stopped giving them free access to your emotions. Because their ego isn't fed by your distance. Because they don't love you. They love the version of themselves they feel when they're able to control you. And yet we still hope. We hope the return means they've grown. That maybe time softened them. That maybe the pain taught them. That maybe this time they'll be different. But hope, when misused, becomes self-harm. You need to stop hoping for his evolution and start investing in your own. Because the truth is, he doesn't miss you. He misses the way you made him feel. He misses the safety of your forgiveness. He misses being the center of your emotional world. But missing isn't loving. And loving without accountability isn't love. It's indulgence. It's taking without giving. It's feeding off someone else's light because you refuse to find your own. Don't let him feed off your light anymore. Now is the time to sit in the silence and understand the power in your no. Because your no doesn't mean bitterness. It means boundaries. It means growth. It means your love is no longer free to those who didn't pay the price of change. Look at yourself now. Think of the nights you cried and still showed up for work. Think of the mornings you pulled yourself out of bed when everything inside you was screaming to give up. Think of the times you walked away from the conversation, the fight, the apology you deserved but never received. You are no longer the girl who bends so others can breathe easier. You are no longer the woman who sets herself on fire to keep others warm. You are no longer the heart that breaks just to give someone else a home. You are not being cold, you are being clear. There is a difference between forgiveness and foolishness, between compassion and self-erasure, between giving someone a chance and giving them a license to harm you again. Don't confuse closure with reconnection. Don't confuse unfinished conversations with destiny. Don't confuse emotional intensity with compatibility. Love is not supposed to feel like survival, and yet so many of us were taught that it is. That if it's not hard, it's not real. That if it doesn't break you open, it can't be love. But that's not love. That's trauma bonding. That's a chemical addiction to chaos. And the truth is, healing will feel boring at first. Stability will feel unfamiliar. Respect might feel like distance, because you've only known closeness through crisis. But you'll get used to it. The peace, the clarity, the soft mornings where you don't wake up wondering if he'll call. The evenings where your worth isn't tied to a text. The moments of solitude that feel like serenity instead of punishment. That's what he's testing. Not just your memory of the past, but your vision for the future. He's not back for love. He's back to see if the door is still cracked open. To see if the old you still answers. But this time, let the silence speak. Let your growth speak. Let your peace speak. Because when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop justifying your boundaries, when you stop performing worthiness, you step into your divine power. And the truth is, not everyone deserves front row seats to your evolution. So when he comes back, and he will, don't ask him what he wants. Ask yourself, what am I no longer willing to lose just to feel wanted? The test has never been about him. It's always been about you. Are you ready to pass it? You see, every test life throws at you is asking a single question in disguise. Have you learned to love yourself enough to stop betraying your own heart? Because if you haven't, the lesson will repeat. The face might change. The name, the voice, the strategy, each time slightly different, but the wound underneath will remain the same. And life, in its infinite wisdom, will keep bringing you mirrors until you finally look long enough to heal. So when he comes back, it's not a coincidence. It's choreography. This isn't about fate. This is about patterns. This isn't the universe giving you a second chance with him. It's the universe giving you a second chance with yourself. This is where your emotional maturity is forged, not in the comfort of being wanted, but in the courage to no longer need it. You see, emotional maturity is when you no longer chase clarity from others because you've found it within yourself. It's when you no longer beg for closure because you've become the one who closes your own doors. It's when you stop asking, "Why did he hurt me?" and start asking, "Why did I stay after the first time he did?" Let that question crack you open, because within it lies the deeper healing. Maybe you stayed because you didn't want to be alone. Maybe you stayed because you thought love meant sacrifice. Maybe you stayed because you mistook his pain for depth, his confusion for complexity, his inconsistency for emotional intensity. But now you know better, because now you've sat with your loneliness and learned it wasn't a punishment, it was preparation. Now you've redefined love, not as rescue or repair, but as resonance. Now you've learned that compatibility isn't built on chemistry alone, but on shared values, mutual safety, and the willingness to grow together. And that kind of love, it never leaves and comes back. That kind of love doesn't test your boundaries. That kind of love doesn't reappear only when it's convenient. That kind of love builds, it doesn't break. So if he's back, you must ask, what is he really offering you this time? Is it remorse or is it regret? Is it evolution or is it ego? Is it love or is it loneliness wearing a familiar mask? Because let's be honest, people come back when they feel your detachment more deeply than they ever felt your devotion. They return when your absence begins to echo louder than your presence once did. They come crawling, not because they've had a change of heart, but because they've lost the power they once had over yours. But this is not your cue to shrink back into that role. This is your moment to rise. Let me tell you about a woman named Sophia. She was with a man for 7 years. He never hit her. He never cheated. But he controlled everything, the money, the decisions, the pace of the relationship. He gaslit her into believing she was overly emotional, too sensitive, hard to love. She shrunk herself for so long, she forgot what it felt like to be seen. Eventually she left. No dramatic exit, no slamming doors, just a quiet departure and a commitment to healing. 3 years later, he came back, same eyes, same smile, different words. "I've changed," he said. "I realized what I lost. I'm ready now." But Sophia didn't feel the rush she used to. Instead, she felt calm. The kind of calm that only comes from having rebuilt yourself. The kind of calm that doesn't need revenge, doesn't need closure, doesn't need an apology to move forward. She looked him in the eye and said, "I believe you've changed. I just no longer need to be the woman who waits for it." That is power. That is the test passed. And you have that power too. But only if you stop romanticizing return. Stop calling it fate when it's a rerun. Stop labeling it love when it's manipulation in disguise. Stop glorifying his apology when it only exists to reopen a door that should have stayed closed. Because the version of you that's healed is not compatible with the version of him that still hasn't. And no matter how pretty the words, no matter how sweet the apology, you can't build a future on recycled promises. This is your moment to pause, breathe, and ask, what do I actually want? Not who, but what. Do you want peace? Do you want clarity? Do you want commitment, reciprocity, truth? Then don't trade all of that for a flicker of familiarity, because here's the truth. No one tells you. Healing is lonely before it's liberating. There will be nights you question your decision. There will be moments when his absence feels louder than your peace. There will be flashes of doubt. Did I make a mistake? Should I have given him one more chance? But you didn't come this far to settle for echoes of love. You didn't do all this inner work to play small in someone else's unfinished story. You came this far to rewrite the ending. So stop fantasizing about the man he could be. Start honoring the woman you've become. This is the rebirth of your standards. This is the revolution of your heart. And let me say this clearly. You are allowed to outgrow people who once felt like home. Because sometimes home was built on survival. Sometimes home was the chaos you normalized. Sometimes home was the place you learned to live without being loved properly. Now you get to choose differently. You get to choose a love that doesn't require you to bleed for it. You get to choose a partner who doesn't vanish when things get real. You get to choose yourself, not as a consolation prize, but as the main event. This is not about revenge. This is about reverence. Reverence for your own time. Reverence for your own healing. Reverence for the woman you fought so hard to become. So when he returns and says, I miss you, you don't need to say, I miss you too. You can say, I miss who I was with you, but I love who I am without you. Let that sink in. You've come too far to shrink back into someone's maybe. You've shed too many skins to wear an old identity just because it's familiar. You've built too much truth inside you to entertain a version of love that asks you to lie to yourself again. This is not the end of the story. This is the beginning of your real life. The kind of life where you don't wait for apologies that never come. The kind of life where you stop proving and start protecting your peace. The kind of life where your love is sacred, and only those who can honor it are invited in. So when he comes back, let him knock, let him wonder, let him feel the loss of your light, because you've moved on to a place where love doesn't test you, it treasures you. And that is where the real story begins. You have to understand, this isn't just about a man coming back. This is about what you do when life brings a ghost to your doorstep. When the past whispers your name, hoping you'll forget the fire it set behind you. When the familiar knocks in the middle of the night, not to love you, but to see if it still can. It is in that moment, more than any other, where your healing is revealed. Not in how loudly you declare your boundaries, but in how quietly you honor them. Not in whether you're angry at him, but in whether you've stopped being angry at yourself. Because self-respect is not loud. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't require revenge or confrontation or a mic drop moment. It's calm. It's quiet. It's choosing not to reply. It's choosing not to re-engage. It's choosing to keep walking, even when every fiber of your body craves the comfort of the known pain, and that craving is real. Let's not pretend it isn't. You see, the body remembers patterns more than it remembers people. Your nervous system remembers the rhythm of his voice, the smell of his skin, the space he took up in your bed and in your thoughts. Trauma bonds don't break with willpower alone. They untangle slowly over time through clarity, self-love, and deliberate conscious choices. So when he returns, it might feel like relief. It might feel like validation. It might feel like redemption. But it's not. It's repetition. He is not your miracle. He is your mirror, reflecting how far you've come or how far you still have to go. And you, my love, are not here to repeat cycles. You are here to break them. There's a difference between chemistry and compatibility. Chemistry is the spark. Compatibility is what keeps the fire burning. Chemistry is magnetic, addictive, intoxicating. But compatibility is stable, respectful, consistent. Chemistry is what he uses to pull you back. Compatibility is what he's never offered you. Think of the women who came before you, your mother, your grandmother, your ancestors. How many of them settled for survival because the world never gave them the option of healing? How many of them stayed in relationships because they didn't have the tools, the support, or the permission to leave? But you are the first generation with language for your pain. You are the first to name your wounds instead of hiding them. You are the first to say, no more, the cycle ends with me. Do you understand how powerful that is? You are not just rejecting a man, you are reclaiming every piece of yourself that once said yes when it should have said no. This is legacy work. This is ancestral healing. This is the moment your daughters and nieces, and every woman who watches you, will look back on and say, she was the one who chose differently. So choose, not because you're angry, not because you want to prove something, but because you're finally, truly, deeply ready to live without abandoning yourself. Let me tell you about a woman named Amani. She spent most of her 20s loving a man who never loved her the way she needed. He was present, but never committed, affectionate, but never consistent. She kept believing that one day, the love would deepen. One day the clarity would come. It never did. One day, after months of no contact, he messaged her. I've been thinking about you. I miss the way you made me feel. I miss your energy. She paused. She could feel the old part of her, the one that longed to be seen, perking up. But this time she didn't respond from that place. She had grown. She had invested in herself. She had done the quiet, grueling work of becoming whole. So she replied, simply, I'm glad you remember me fondly, but I've moved on from the version of me you once knew. She waited. I don't. She didn't need a grand speech. She didn't need to be cruel. She simply told the truth, and that truth, it set her free. That's the level of grace you get to step into now. Not bitterness, not ego, just truth. Your healing is no longer about fixing him. It's about no longer abandoning yourself in the name of potential. It's about understanding that closure isn't something he gives you. It's something you give yourself. When you stop asking questions that don't deserve answers. It's when you stop asking why he left and start celebrating that you survived. It's when you realize the apology you've been waiting for will never feel as good as the freedom you've already earned. Because love that leaves you confused isn't love. Love that returns only when it's convenient isn't love. Love that demands your silence, your softness, your surrender, while giving you nothing in return, is not love. So what do you do when he returns? You pause. You listen to your body, to the tension in your shoulders, to the way your stomach drops, to the way your breath shortens. Your body remembers who he is, even if your heart wants to forget. You ask yourself, am I about to honor my future or repeat my past? You do not engage in war. You do not argue. You do not explain your boundaries. You simply hold them, because growth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes growth is silence. Sometimes growth is choosing not to participate in a narrative that used to consume you. And you have grown so much, even if you don't always feel it, even if you still sometimes ache for what once was. That ache doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. But you are not that girl anymore. The one who made excuses, the one who gave too many chances, the one who stayed up at night wondering if she was enough. You are a woman who knows her worth, who's tasted her own strength, who's looked herself in the mirror and finally seen someone worth protecting. And that version of you, she doesn't chase, she doesn't beg, she doesn't settle. She remembers not just the pain he caused, but the power she gained by surviving it. And when he knocks again, she doesn't answer the door, because she's not home in that version of herself anymore. She's moved forward, and forward is a place he no longer knows how to find. There's a stillness that comes after you've closed a door for the last time. It's not loud, it's not triumphant, it's not always wrapped in certainty. Sometimes it's just the sound of your own breathing, no longer holding itself hostage for someone else's return. And that silence after the storm, after the confusion, after the endless cycles of hope and heartbreak is the most sacred sound in the world. It's the moment your soul exhales and says, finally, you chose me. Because the truth is, you've never been waiting for him to change. You've been waiting for yourself to awaken. This journey was never about the man, it was about what he awakened in you. He was the catalyst, not the destination. He was the test, not the lesson. And now you know healing isn't about who hurt you. It's about who you become after the hurting stops. There comes a moment in every woman's life when she has to stop being the girl who survives and start being the woman who chooses. Not chooses comfort, not chooses chaos, but chooses clarity. Clarity about what love actually means. clarity about what she deserves, clarity about what no longer serves her, no matter how nostalgic it feels. Because not everything that feels familiar is safe. Not everything that looks like love is rooted in love. Not everyone who returns is meant to stay. Some people come back to see if they still have access to you, and your job is to show them they don't. Let me share with you one final story. Her name was Raquel. Raquel had always been the fixer, the healer, the one who saw potential in people and stayed long past her own breaking point because she believed in their someday. She was with a man who disappeared every time life got hard. The pattern was predictable. He'd ghost her for weeks, come back with a sob story, and she'd open the door again, both literally and metaphorically, until one day she didn't. He showed up at her door, rain-soaked, teary-eyed, desperate. She looked at him, heart pounding, years of memories rushing back like a wave. And then she said quietly, "I used to think love meant saving you. Now I know love means saving myself." She didn't let him in, not out of spite, out of self-respect. She walked away, and for the first time in her life, she didn't look back. That's what passing the test looks like. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just final. And that finality is not a punishment, it's freedom, because closure isn't a conversation, it's a decision. You don't need his understanding to heal. You don't need his validation to move on. You don't need his approval to become the woman you were always meant to be. He came back to test you, to see if you still bleed where he once wounded you, to see if the version of you that loved him still exists. But she doesn't. She's gone. In her place stands someone wiser, softer, stronger. Someone who knows that peace isn't found in second chances, it's found in first-time boundaries. Someone who knows that love doesn't require you to shrink, sacrifice, or suffer. Someone who finally understands that real love, deep, mutual, healing love, doesn't confuse you, doesn't test you, doesn't leave you guessing. It shows up, it stays, it grows. So when he says, "I miss you," remember that missing someone doesn't mean you're meant for them. It means they've finally noticed the absence of something they once took for granted. That's not love, that's loss. And you're not a loss, you're a lesson. One he'll carry long after you've moved on, to a love that doesn't make you doubt yourself. A love that celebrates your depth, that honors your healing, that shows up without being begged. A love that feels like home because it's built on truth, not illusion. So close the door, not with bitterness, but with grace. Not with rage, but with reverence. Reverence for every tear you cried. Reverence for every moment you chose yourself. Reverence for the journey that brought you here. Because this beautiful, sacred, terrifying act of choosing yourself is what all the pain was leading to. He's not back for love, he's back to test you. And for the first time in your life, you've passed, with grace, with power, with silence, and with the unshakable truth that you are no longer a woman who settles for less than she deserves. You are the woman who walks away from what once broke her and never returns.